what's the ideal workout schedule?
Well, I suggest every beginner should start out with no more than 3 days a week. Absolutely. I did that myself because it turns out when I started training, I was training at a kind of a recreation center in New York, where the weight gym was only open 3 times a week. So I had no choice. But it turns out that's the best way for a beginner to train. And you start out with the basic exercises. This is age-old advice. You do your squats and your bench press and, your bend over barbell row, so on and so forth. You do that for about a year. And then you could progress if you want. You could start doing a split routine, which ranges anywhere from 4 days a week to 6 days a week, or you could just continue on the 3 days a week if you respond better. There was a very famous bodybuilder, a guy named Steve Reeves, who
Mhm.
made Hercules movies. He was very famous. He was the number one movie star in 1959. He was Mr. America 1947, Mr. Universe 1950. He said in several interviews that there is absolutely no reason to train the body more than 3 times a week. He says any more than that is overtraining. And he never, even when he's training for these Mr. Universe contests, he never trained more than 3 times a week. That was most of the guys in the 40s and 50s, they trained 3 times a week, whole body. Of course, training the whole body is very exhausting because you work every muscle. So you got to keep the volume down. You can't do 20 sets per muscle. You'd be in the gym for 9 hours.
Right.
So you'd have to keep it. Go ahead.
So when Steve Reeves was working out, so what's the 3 days a week? So are you doing your full body every day of the?
You're doing your full body every workout, and you start with the largest muscles and work down. So you'd start with your legs, your thighs, because they take the most energy. And then, theoretically, the last muscle you train would be calves. But I don't know if that's a great idea. If Because most people have weak calves, I think calves should be given priority where they should be trained either right before or right after thigh training. That's what I've always done because I never had great calves. Because
Mhm.
if you try and train your calves, I found personally, if I tried to train my calves after my training my thighs, I couldn't get anything out of the workout at all because the thighs would just destroy. When I trained my legs were like rubber. I could barely stand up afterwards. And to try and go on to train calves after that was nearly impossible for me. A lot of people do it. I could never do it. So I would advise somebody with weaker calves to train them at the beginning of the workout. But generally, if you're training 3 times a week, whole body, you start with the largest muscles. Start with legs first, then you would do back, then you could do for chest after that, shoulders, and then you can move on to bicep and tricep.